Are you ready to overcome the complexities and burdens that come with your success? Join the team at Centura Wealth Advisory in the Live Life Liberated podcast. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Live Life Liberated with the team from Centura Wealth Advisory. Jonathan, how are you? I know you're in the hot seat today running the interview. What's going on?
Hi, it is a hot seat because, it's middle of summer and the weather outside is very warm, but in here it's cool, and nice. I've just excited to have a new guest come on to today's show and introduce him to our listening audience.
Yeah, somebody brand new in studio. Who'd you bring in?
Yeah, his name is Roby Kotcamp. He is a wealth advisor based out of Scottsdale, Arizona, so he knows what the heat's all about. Mm-hmm. But he decided to come to San Diego and cool off a little bit and join the show. So we're excited to have him in here, and I'll give a little bit more time for him to introduce himself. But he's been in the business as, I'll call it maybe a second career, but you'll hear more about that later. But as a wealth advisor, he serves high net worth clients all across the United States. And we got connected through a program that our joint custodian, TD Ameritrade, offered. And through that technology and partnering program, we got introduced. We got to know each other, learn a little bit more about each of our businesses, and really found a mutual beneficial relationship that we're excited to share here today. So, Roby, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself to our listening audience?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jonathan. As you said, Roby Kotcamp. Just getting to know the folks at Centura over the last couple of months, and excited to jump in and start talking about things.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so obviously, as I mentioned, wealth advisory is not something you started your career path around, and you've had a very diverse and interesting background. So with that kind of brief introduction, tell us a little bit more about your early career and how that really set you up for today as an advisor to your clients and a trusted advisor. What was it that, the tools, the building blocks that really allowed you to kind of now provide great advice?
Yeah, no, thanks. So probably good maybe just to start sort of educational background. Got my undergraduate degree in finance from Purdue University. I actually, when I started school, I thought I was going to be a chemical engineer. The good news was I was really good at the math. The bad news was that I think the faculty was concerned I was going to blow up a lab at some point. So, fairly quickly made an adjustment there, moved into the finance track, got my undergraduate degree in finance. After undergraduate, I went on and moved into environmental services. So actually did a number of things there.
Wait, let me clear the record. Yeah. You didn't blow anything up while you're in college, is that right?
Yeah, no, indeed, I did not, but there was fear that I might.
Yeah, okay, good. I just want to make that sure, because I think my track record's not as good as yours, but we'll leave that for another day.
Yeah, no, so when I came out of school, I went into environmental services, and actually more of a traditional corporate finance track. So I did a number of different things there. So actually I traveled the world really early in my career, did a lot of internal financial reviews for the company, helping them to understand.
Which company?
So specifically it was waste management.
Oh, yeah. A trash company.
Yeah, trash company, recycling, a whole host of things that they were involved in. Still a great company today, actually. So spent a handful of years there working with them, as I said, doing some internal reviews. Actually spent some time, I was a site controller at a facility in Puerto Rico. Actually was division vice president, financial controller for a division in Southern California.
Nice.
And so really picked up some nice experiences there. Spent a fair amount of time. We spent time doing things like looking at potential tuck-in acquisitions, things of that nature. And so really got a lot of kind of a deep corporate finance experience and background there. So after doing that for a handful of years, I actually decided I probably better go back to school. There's some things I don't know yet I'd like to learn. Went to Northwestern University, got my master's degree in finance. So what most people think of as an MBA, for whatever reason, Northwestern has always referred to it as a master's in management and finance. Nobody knows why, but that's what they do there. So when I came out of school there, I probably made an interesting decision. I had a number of consulting opportunities, but decided that what I really wanted to do was get involved in the aerospace industry at that point. And so I went to work in the aerospace industry, got really a nice opportunity kind of moving into a general management path. And so the sorts of things that I did there, I, again, worked in some ways in mergers and acquisitions. I worked through a number of different finance roles, ultimately into kind of the general management side of the business. Spent some time actually helping to run a division in Asia, distribution business that we had there. And then ultimately sort of the final experience that I had there in the environmental services business, I was actually running a program management function for one of the larger divisions there in our aerospace division. So
how did all that get to giving you the tools to become an advisor?
Yeah, so here's what was interesting. So, as I thought back to the sort of the beginning of my career, and what did I really think I was going to do when I was in undergrad? And as I thought about that, it was like, I always really sort of enjoyed the personal financial aspects of that. And as I developed my career, I had this knack. I was just reasonably good at kind of managing investments, spent a fair amount of time helping family members, friends, thinking through, what are good ways that you should manage your investments, how should you manage your taxes, and really sort of always had a passion around that. So even as I was deeply involved in kind of 80-hour-a-week corporate career, I still managed to find time on weekends and nights and whatever to kind of help family and friends. So I had a interesting sort of personal life, I guess. I was very lucky, met sort of the girl of my dreams very early, got married relatively young. We ended up not having children, and we sort of, in some ways, kind of knew that that's the path we were going to go down. And we both had relatively successful careers, got to a point, after sort of a dozen or so years in the corporate world, and recognized we'd been pretty blessed and we were in a position to sort of do whatever we wanted to do. And at that point, I said, hey, I think I may want to move in a different direction, and really understood that passion around personal finance and how I might be able to help individuals and families to work on that.
That's great. And so you ended up joining an independent advisory firm, or how did you make that decision?
Yeah. So initially what I had to do is say, okay, it's great. You sort of know some things, but you're going to have to really do this professionally. So as I was sort of exiting one career, entering another, I went and studied and passed the CFP exam, which is sort of one of the standards in the industry that are pretty well respected. Did that, and then decided, I needed to go to work for a independent registered investment advisor, make sure sort of meet the experience requirements, all those sorts of things to really do this as a profession. So, worked with some terrific folks, learned a lot of things there, was privileged to work with, families sort of all across the spectrum, from kind of beginners to folks with significant wealth, and, learned sort of how to help all of them through all those phases of wealth accumulation.
Yeah. So somewhere along the path, you decided you got a bug to do your own deal, start your own business. And what was the impetus, or why did you choose to go down that path versus just sticking it out?
Yeah, so interestingly, after I'd sort of spent some time at the RIA and picked up a lot of good experiences, my wife and I, this sort of short version of the story, I guess. My wife and I, we're both experiencing some issues within the family that we just needed to deal with, and it became important just to step away for a little bit. And it really sort of put us in a position that over a number of months we could really evaluate, hey, what do you really want to do long term once we'd sort of navigated our way through the personal issues. And as I thought through that, I said, I've developed some pretty specific ideas of how I think I might like to help folks. And in particular, this sort of goes back to the early part of my career, where I had done a lot of this corporate management kind of work. So I'd run pieces of large entities, and really sort of looked at the entire spectrum of what goes on within kind of corporate finance, corporate general management, and recognized that would probably resonate really well, particularly with successful executives, people that were doing particularly well in life. And I had a view or a vision of how I wanted to serve that set of people. And so initially I said, look, I'm going to kind of start from scratch here, and I'm really going to make myself known as sort of more of a consultant initially. And help people that had some specific issues. And so initially, some of the things that I did actually helped some entrepreneurs through either purchasing or selling businesses that they were involved in, so sort of guiding them through that process. And as they got comfortable and pretty happy with some of those things, people started to ask, hey, I know you were doing RIA work. Is that, can you continue to do that? Can you help me with those things? And over the last few years, that's really just sort of exploded as more and more people have said, love what you're doing, want you to help me, want you to help my friends. And so it's really been a terrific experience.
Yeah, no, it's great when you start doing good work. It kind of just, the word gets out and becomes a good positive cycle in terms of generating new business. So right. I love how you have a very kind of focused niche, so to speak, in terms of helping successful executives and business owners, very similar to those who we like to serve. And so you started your own business. Basically, as an independent, you can make a lot of decisions, determine what services you want to offer, and been doing that for 5 years, right?
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah. So obviously, at some point, you got to a position where you figured you had some pain. Yet, as running a business and trying to grow it, you started running into some constraints. So tell us a little bit about what those were, and then what caused you to say, hey, I gotta change something here, and if I really want to achieve where I'm going.
Yeah, so it was the best possible problem to have. Is that the number one issue that I had really was capacity constraints, and so the way in which I was running the business was working very well for clients. Clients were extremely happy with it. But what I was finding was that, look, there are lots of individuals and families that would like to get in the door, and it was just becoming more and more difficult to say yes, which is not a problem that you want to have in any business. You want to always be able to say yes. And so as I thought about that, there are a couple of options. You can go hire a lot of folks. You can sort of try to build out capability from scratch. And that's attractive in a lot of ways, but it also comes with a lot of pain. That's a road with a lot of learnings. And so as I looked at the different options that were available, it became clear that the best solution might be to find a firm that already built out some of those capabilities, and that specifically we're already demonstrating some of the same processes, tools, capabilities that I feel like I was demonstrating with my clients. So there would be sort of a seamless, how do we kind of get together, join forces, get to that kind of 1 + 1 = 4 sort of formulation. Right. And as I was having discussions with a number of folks, Centura really pretty quickly bubbled at the top of the list as we worked through the discussions.
That's great. And so outside of capacity, what were, was it tool set, was it people, process, a variety of things really that ultimately said, hey, I need to, find a broader platform, so to speak, is what we like to say.
Yeah, probably sort of all subsets of that capacity issue, right? So it's not just about you can't take on new folks. It's a recognition that you want to continue to serve your existing clients with excellence.
Right.
And as you start to see those capacity constraints, you start to worry about things like, even though I'm spending 15 hours on the weekend sort of reading all the latest investment reports and trying to make sure that we're positioning clients effectively in their portfolios, could I or should I have spent that 16th hour kind of working on that stuff? And what you recognize is that, look, there are folks that specialize in doing those things. And so identifying those core skills that need to be part of your business and saying, look, if there are folks that are doing this as well or better than you are, and as we kind of sort of work in concert to create that additional capacity, that's really, really important. So I think it's that kind of quality of service was really becoming critical.
Yeah, I get that totally. So when when we first started talking, we were kind of, I'll call it peeling back the covers on Centura. What was it that you saw in terms of, beyond capacity? Obviously, in any, I'll call it marriage, there's a need to understand who you're combining forces with. What was it that was most attractive to you, and what problems did it help solve outside of the capacity situation?
Yeah, so I think two things stand out. The first is what I'll call a really high-end process orientation that I saw at Centura. And so, one of the things that I've done over the years, I said I've kind of worked through mergers and acquisitions in lots of businesses. And so I've seen businesses that are well-run, businesses that are not well-run, and unfortunately sometimes there are more of the latter than the former.
Right.
But within Centura, I saw this real great process orientation where it was clear that They had a vision of what they wanted to accomplish. They have a deep set of processes that help them to ensure sort of the quality of the experience with clients. And I think it was critically important. Like, there was just no scenario in which I wanted to be involved with anybody that wasn't going to continue to help me serve my clients in a way that was sort of, off the charts concierge service. And that's what I saw at Centura, is that commitment to really serving well. The other thing that stands out there, I think, is just this idea of transparency and accountability, that, we're going to tell the unvarnished truth, whatever the situation, and we're going to hit issues head on and make sure that we come up with effective solutions to deal with that. So that stands out. And then, specifically in terms of just domain expertise, Centura is doing things that I have not seen. It exists out there in the marketplace, but what Centura is doing, I think, is truly unique in terms of the way it's serving, particularly clients that are, have reached a level of accomplishment, a level of wealth in their life that, is maybe beyond where a number of people otherwise get to, and really effectively helping them to navigate through estate issues, income tax issues, really helping them to flesh out, what are my goals? What do I need to do to sort of integrate those goals, recognize that they're all sort of competing with one another, so I have to sort of wrestle with what control am I willing to give up versus what sort of tax savings I'm trying to generate. And Centura is just doing it in a way that is something I've not seen elsewhere. And it is extremely impressive, and something I think that is really attractive to clients.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think, it's so true to have that level of transparency and accountability. All too often professional services firms are, they say they're a service firm, but in reality, when it comes down to it, most people get dissatisfied with their current provider because they're not getting serviced.
Right.
And having the team, the culture, the people, and the process to be able to service people well, knowing that they're well taken care of and they can trust in their team, is something that really stands out, and people, love the relationship. They build a bond that they don't want to let go of.
Absolutely.
So, a little bit more about yourself, because when I started to get to know you, I was deeply impressed with, you said you had achieved a level of success in your career where you were able to kind of think differently about needs and what you wanted to accomplish, what legacy you wanted to leave here while you were still on this planet. So tell us a little bit more about your philanthropic, interests and pursuits, because I think that is something that I've seen about you that is truly very unique and well aligned with who we are and where we like to take our clients.
Right. No, thanks for that. I always feel it's always a little bit awkward, I think, to talk about your philanthropic endeavors, but I'm happy to do that. I'd say simply, my wife and I, both come from a background where, we've viewed, look, we're in a pretty lucky place in life. We were born kind of, with all of our limbs and all of our mental faculties. And we're just really pretty lucky, pretty blessed to be where we're at in life. And we were taught that by our parents and sort of carried that on. And as we've, as I said, we got married young. We've been together a lot of years. We sort of developed a vision together that says, look, you ought not to take that kind of good fortune for granted. And to the extent that you're able to do it, you ought to reach out and help those around you that are in need. And there are clearly lots of needs. That's evolved for us over time. We've done a lot of kind of travel around the world. Without question, within the last few years in the U.S., I think we've all really developed a deeper appreciation of some of the needs, some of the issues that we need to work on as a society. But we developed some of that just from some of our world travels. I mean, we have seen real poverty and real need. And so we just came to the conclusion that given that, and this is sort of an important point, I think, that I mentioned earlier, my wife and I did not have children. And so to the extent that there's not really a direct family to leave a legacy to, we really just asked ourselves the question, why do we have this money? Why us? Why did it fall into our hands? Obviously, we worked hard, but to some extent, anybody that says that, look, there's not a fair amount of luck, fair amount of just, good fortune along the way is probably kidding themselves. And so, we concluded that, well, maybe we have it because we have the ability, given sort of the lack of a family to leave a legacy to, that we can do more on the charitable front. And so we just continue to sort of develop that. We've committed ourselves that, to the extent that we maybe would prefer not to have Uncle Sam get more than his fair share, we'll use charity to kind of fulfill that desire that we have to really truly leave an impact in society and in a way that makes a difference.
That's fantastic. Is there any one cause or one area that you're more than others in terms of passion or excitement around?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, I guess I would say we have historically focused our efforts a little bit outside of the U.S., and some of that's just been driven by, as we've traveled the world and seen some real needs, we've wanted to try to alleviate hunger and poverty, make sure there's clean water, things of that nature. Those really have been a focus. Candidly, within the last couple of years, I think we've started to take a harder look at the needs right here at home. And, we're starting to develop some specific charities and causes that we want to support here at home.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So when it comes to serving clients, obviously you're going from hey, I have to do everything, to joining a firm where there's actually a team-based approach. So, tell us in terms of how you see your service model evolving. What was it, or what is it about this team model that you think is effective and beneficial for your clients, given that for some, they just had one number to call.
Right.
And they probably still will keep your number in their speed dial, but what is it about our way of servicing that you think really helps deliver that same level of quality of service?
Yeah, so as a generalization, whether or not we're talking about Centura, I think there's this idea that you want to kind of do that which only you can do as somebody that has some skills in the marketplace, and so really being able to leverage a team period that can do some of the things that maybe there are 2 or 3 people that can do this. It doesn't need to be me doing this task. So I think as a generalization, that's true. What I saw at Centura, again, point I alluded to earlier maybe, is the process orientation, where when you start to get to know Centura from the inside, you really see that there is not anything haphazard or accidental about what happens internally. That terrific leadership team combined with really terrific associates that understand, participate actively in understanding sort of the vision of the organization, and really doing a great job of defining what those individual roles ought to look like so that everybody understands the value they contribute. And so when you see that actually in practice, it's different than it's just a voice on the other end of the line, a number I call, and I hope that they do what I asked them to do, which is, sometimes your experience at the cable company or with the IRS or whatever. At Centura, there's this real sense of that when the call gets answered, that the person on the other end of the line has already thought about, how should this interaction go, and they're going to make sure it's a really quality experience. So in terms of Centura specific, I think just seeing that process orientation, that kind of passion, commitment to excellence in terms of serving clients really has given me, just a great sense of comfort about, I know going forward my clients are going to have a terrific experience. I assume most of my clients would say Roby's a really great guy, but
I'm sure they would.
But every once in a while they probably think, it would be great if I just had another person to kind of talk to, like, look, I need you to send me a couple of dollars out of my account today. Can I just hand that to somebody? And so feeling really confident about Centura's ability to handle those really critical, tactical, day-to-day activities.
Yeah, and I think the other broader picture of it is, professional services firm, we always think about our goal as a company, which is to create a sustainable organization. And when you're trying to do everything yourself, at some point your client's going to look you in the eye and say, well, what happens if you get hit by a bus, right? And so having the team, the resources, and the people around to make sure that their interests will always be served over time and hopefully over generations, having that infrastructure in place is really something that goes back to just serving your client well and putting their interests ahead of your own personal interests. Right. So I think that definitely resonates with our purpose and mission in life here at Centura. And with that, I think we can kind of close out the show, because we were really here to give people who don't know you a chance to learn a little bit more about you. And hopefully for others that are listening in, you will have an opportunity to work with Roby at some point down the road. He is based in Scottsdale, but serves clients all across the United States and has quite a few up in Northern California, I believe. But we're always looking to find a good alignment there in terms of others that want to take advantage of his skill set and expertise. So with that, Eric, I appreciate your hosting us today and taking us through this fun and exciting podcast, and want to turn it over to you again.
I appreciate that, guys. Roby, it's such a pleasure to meet you. I hope that through this podcast, the clients do get a better understanding of you and what makes you tick. I love the philanthropic stuff that you and your wife are doing. Thank you so much for doing that. And I also just want to ask, is there a specific number that they should be calling if they want to get to know you better or speak to you about maybe their specific circumstance that you can help them with? Yeah,
thanks, Eric. Clients can reach me pretty much anytime at this number, 480-750-9450.
Yeah, and contact information is obviously available on our website as well. But Eric, thank you very much.
You betcha. Hey, Jonathan, one more thing before we go. Can you remind people what the website is so they can reach out there?
Absolutely. It's www.centurawealth.com.
All right, fantastic. Thank you guys so much for the podcast today. And of course, our last thank you always goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Liberated Podcast with the team from Centura Wealth Advisory. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when they come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it really easy to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And heck, if you've got some family in Arizona, you know who to call. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Centura Wealth Advisory, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Live Life Liberated podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Centura Wealth Advisory. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Centura Wealth Advisory. Centura is an SEC registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in San Diego, California. Centura and its representatives are in compliance with the current registration and notice filing requirements imposed on SEC registered investment advisors, in which Centura maintains clients. Centura may only transact business in those states in which it is notice filed or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from notice filing requirements. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Tax relief varies based on client circumstances, and all clients do not achieve the same results.